In the beginning. These three simple words open one of the most profound and debated texts in history. From philosophers to scientists, from theologians to seekers of wisdom, we've all asked the same question. How did everything begin? And even more importantly, why? But Bereshit, the very first portion of the Torah, offers us more than just a timeline of existence itself. Today we're diving into Parasha Bereshit, the story of creation, with a dash of Kabbalah. Together we'll uncover the secrets passed down for generations, waiting for those who seek wisdom. Let's begin with the creation story itself, the foundation not only of our world, but of the Torah as a whole. The very first words of the Torah, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. From that moment on, the process of creation unfolds over 6 days, each day with its own distinct purpose. On day 1, God separates light from the darkness. Light is called day and darkness night. But there's something deeper here. According to the mystical tradition of Kabbalah, this isn't just physical light. The light created on the first day, often referred to as Or HaGanuz, the hidden light, is said to be a divine, spiritual light reserved for the righteous. Day 2 brings the separation of the waters, creating the sky above and the oceans below. Day 3 marks the emergence of land, and with it, plants and trees of all kinds. But why this particular order? The Midrash teaches that the physical elements were created before life to show that God provides for his creations before they even exist. From the separation of sky and sea to the creation of the fertile ground, the whole world was prepared to be a home for all forms of life. Day 4, the sun, moon, and stars are placed in the heavens to give light to the earth and to mark the passage of time. The Kabbalists teach that these celestial bodies are more than just lights. They symbolize divine energies that influence our world, bringing balance to time, seasons, and life itself. On day 5, God fills the seas with creatures and the sky with birds. And finally, on day 6, the land is populated with animals and the pinnacle of creation, humanity. Adam and Eve are formed, created in the image of God, a phrase that carries deep meaning. What does it mean to be in God's image? Some say it reflects our capacity for wisdom, creativity, and moral choice. And on the 7th day, God rests, establishing the sacredness of Shabbat, a day that serves as a reminder that the act of creation isn't just a historical event, ongoing, and we play a part in it every week when we step back from our daily work and embrace rest. In fact, the Kabbalists teach that Shabbat itself is a taste of the world to come, a weekly reminder of the divine purpose embedded in all creation. The story of creation isn't just a literal sequence of events. Within the Torah's words, there are layers of hidden meaning. And one of the most profound ways to explore them is through the mystical tradition of Kabbalah. Take the word Bereshit itself. In Hebrew, every letter has a numerical value, and many sages believe that each letter carries its own spiritual significance. The first letter, Bet, for instance, represents house or beginning, symbolizing the creation of a dwelling place for God in the world. But some Kabbalists go further, suggesting that the very first letter is a hint of God's desire to create a physical world from a place of divine unity. And this leads us to the concept of the 10 Sephirot, the 10 divine emanations through which God's infinite light flows into our world. Each of these Sephirot represents a different attribute of God, from Chesed, or kindness, to Gevurah, or strength, or Tiferet, or beauty. And together, they form the blueprint of creation. According to Kabbalah, the process of creation mirrors these divine attributes. For example, the first day of creation, light, corresponds to the Sephirah of Chokhmah, or wisdom, which symbolizes the initial spark of insight. The separation of waters on the second day aligns with Binah, understanding, where that initial spark is developed into something structured. And each of the subsequent days aligns with a different Sephirah, reflecting God's balance between mercy, judgment, harmony, in shaping the world. So let's talk about light, the very first creation. The Torah says, "Let there be light." But this wasn't the light from the sun, which was created later. Kabbalah teaches that this initial light, called the Or Haganoz, or hidden light, wasn't just a physical light. It was a spiritual light that allowed Adam and Eve to see from one end of the world to the other. It was hidden away after the sin in the Garden of Eden, but it remains a symbol of divine wisdom and enlightenment. Another deep insight is found in the duality of light and darkness. Kabbalah teaches that the creation is not just the unfolding of good, but also the establishment of boundaries, the separation of opposites, light and darkness, day and night, good and evil. This separation allows for the existence of free will, the very thing that makes human beings partners in creation. Every single element of creation contains deeper spiritual truths. Even the act of separating the heavens from the earth, the waters from the dry land, reflects the concept of tzimtzum, the very idea that God, in creating the world, contracted his infinite presence to allow space for something other than himself. In this space, the physical and spiritual realms are born, and humanity's journey is to bridge that very gap. So, when we read the creation story, we aren't just reading a historical account. We're seeing the spiritual blueprint of the universe filled with divine intention. Each action reflects a higher reality that governs not just the world, but the very essence of our existence. Now, the sixth day of creation marks a real turning point, the creation of humanity. The Torah tells us that God formed man from the dust of the earth and breathed life into him, making Adam a living being. But what does it mean to God to breathe life? According to the Kabbalists, this breath isn't just air. It's the divine soul, the neshama, a spark of the infinite within each of us. The Torah describes humanity as created in the image of God. But what does that mean? On the surface, it seems like a bold claim. But in Kabbalistic terms, This refers not to the physical likeness, but to our spiritual capacity. We are reflections of the divine in our ability to create, in our ability to choose, and to seek meaning. The neshama is the highest of the 5 levels of the soul in Kabbalah, representing our connection to God, our inner source of wisdom and purpose. Adam's creation from the dust of the earth highlights our dual nature. We are both physical and spiritual. The body, made of earth, represents our grounded physical existence, while the neshama, the soul, breathed by God, connects us to the divine. This duality is also reflected in the creation of Eve, who is formed from Adam's rib. In Kabbalistic teachings, this signifies the balance between the masculine and the feminine energies, between giving and receiving, a theme that echoes throughout the Torah and throughout all of creation. The Midrash and Kabbalah provide an even deeper perspective on the creation of humanity. Some teachings suggest that Adam and Eve were originally one unified being, and their separation into two reflects the essential duality of creation, the tension between unity and multiplicity. It's this very tension that drives all of existence, and within each of us lies the potential to reunite the physical and spiritual, to bridge that very gap between the mundane and the divine. So, the creation of Adam and Eve is not just the origin of humanity, but a profound teaching on the nature of the soul. It reminds us that while we're part of a physical world, we carry within us a spark of the infinite, a divine purpose that calls us to rise above the earthly and seek the spiritual. One of the most famous moments of the Torah occurs in the Garden of Eden, the story of the tree of knowledge and the first human choice. Adam and Eve are placed in a paradise with one clear instruction: not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Yet, as we know, they do. But this moment is more than a story of disobedience. It's about the birth of free will. Kabbalah teaches that Tzimtzum, the contraction of God's infinite presence, created the space for human free will to exist. By choosing to limit himself, God allowed humanity to make choices, for better or for worse. Without this divine contraction, there would be no room for free will, no space for good and evil, for light and darkness to coexist. The serpent who tempts Eve is not merely a talking animal. According to Kabbalah, the serpent represents the Yetzer Hara, the inclination towards ego, selfishness, and desire. This isn't just a tale about a snake in a garden. It's a metaphor for the internal struggle we all face between our higher divine selves and our base material instincts. By eating from the tree of knowledge, Adam and Eve didn't just gain the ability to discern from good and evil. They gained the responsibility of moral choice. Before this act, they lived in a state of innocence. But once they ate the fruit, they became aware of their capacity to choose between right and wrong, a capacity that comes with both great freedom and great consequence. In Kabbalistic terms, this wasn't merely a fall from grace. It was a necessary step in humanity's spiritual evolution. Without the ability to choose, humans would remain like animals, guided purely by instinct. The choice to eat from the tree introduced the duality of good and evil into human consciousness, a necessary condition for growth and spiritual development. Though the act of disobedience had dire consequences, including expulsion from Eden, it also set humanity on a path towards spiritual refinement. Kabbalah teaches that every choice we make echoes that first choice in the garden. We can either fall prey to our baser instincts or rise to align ourselves with the divine. This constant tension between the physical and the spiritual, the material and the moral, defines the human experience. Parasha Bereshit is more than just the beginning of the world. It's the beginning of our story as humans, navigating the balance between the physical and the spiritual, from the creation of light and life to the complexity of free will. This ancient text continues to speak to us this very day. Whether you're just starting your journey with the Torah or have studied it for years, Bereshit reminds us that creation is ongoing. Every single day, we face choices that shape not only our world, but our spiritual selves. And just like Adam and Eve, we hold that power to elevate the mundane into the divine. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of Bereshit. If you enjoyed this video and want to continue uncovering the deeper layers of the Torah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.